Hey everybody, and welcome to another installment of the 2024 preseason power rankings, where we're going with the 22nd ranked team in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars, really intriguing team because last season it was like, oh, super high expectations. They were expected to win the AFC South by a landslide. And what happens? Texans come out and win it. The Colts are really good. All of them relative in strength. And now the Texans and Colts have only gotten better. And the Titans are going to be a tough team to beat too. So now this team still has high expectations because of who they have at quarterback, how they did the years prior, but now you don't know. It's a roster that's maybe a little incomplete. There's some star talent for sure, but there's a lot of variance that this team could face. But first of all, let me welcome my co-host, No Huddle NFL, or Pat. How you doing today, Pat?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy to be here. The Jaguars are a team. I think some people are probably going to look at this and say, "How the hell is this team not any higher?" And listen, I know the expectation around the Jaguars, but the fact is they haven't quite played up to those expectations, as you're
Have
kind of
not.
alluding to here. I want to get into this culture because I think it seems to be a really weird spot that they're in right now. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, they just paid their quarterback, which is normally a good thing, but this is a contract a lot of people are looking at and saying, okay, yeah, you drafted him number one, but since then, has he really played like that? Are we really paying him according to his draft position after a couple of years of him being in the league and being relatively disappointing relative to those expectations?
I think it's a fine contract personally. I think what do
Yeah,
you
but the point is that narrative being around the team isn't a
right,
good thing for that locker room. Whether you think
right,
he deserves the money or not, the fact is there are people that don't think he deserves the money. And
right.
that has been a loud group of people, and it's been a lot of people on social media saying that. It's been a lot of people that have a platform saying that. And as a result, that becomes the conversation around the team. And when that is the conversation around your team, bad things are going to happen, right? Bad things happen in the locker room. You begin to have players saying, "Oh, wait, is this guy not who we're paying him to be? And why are we pay? Why is he getting paid more than me? I'm Josh Allen. I've been this top-notch defender, and yeah, I got my contract. But really, this guy who everyone is questioning is getting paid. I know it's a difference in position, but I'm telling you right now, the players don't care. They want to get paid. They want their money. And when they see another player get paid, and I think it's undeserving, especially that person's supposed to be the leader of the locker room, they can get frustrated. That is a very possible outcome from this.
Right.
But they also could feel happy about the security of him remaining with the team. It purely depends on how they feel about their quarterback. And that means this quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, is playing for a lot more than just the Jaguars. He's playing for his own reputation.
Totally. Let's talk about Doug Peterson, head coach, kind of guy setting the culture here. No, has had success in the past. Of course, we know getting Philly their Super Bowl, and has had success with this Jaguars team. Remember, he comes in and takes this Jaguars team to the playoffs in his first season. Trevor Lawrence looks good. Everything looks like it's starting to go. And then last year, I would argue this Jaguars team probably does make the playoffs had Trevor Lawrence not gotten hurt. So I still have faith in Doug Peterson. It's more just like, is this roster ready and raring to go? That's where my faith starts to dwindle with this team. But I think Doug Peterson's a good head coach. I think he's a creative head coach. I like his spread scheme because they want to toss the ball to their receivers. I'm a fan.
Yeah, no, the scheme is something I'm excited to get into because it's another pretty interesting one. Again, these schemes differentiate so much, and some teams are spread, some teams are West Coast, but there's a lot of mixture between all
There's a
of
lot
that
of
now.
mixture.
And I think Doug Peterson is one of the examples of that as of late. But this culture and what Doug Peterson is doing for the culture, it's kind of hard to tell. He's never really been the biggest culture guy,
Mm.
and that's why you look at this and it's like, is he having a major impact? Is he fine with these conversations around his quarterback? Is he defending him? We haven't heard him say anything publicly that really makes us feel one way or the other. He's kind of just been like a middleman in all this, which for your head coach, do you want that or do you want more of like a safety kind of, oh yeah, Trevor Lawrence is our guy. Trevor Lawrence absolutely, like, he hasn't, of course, if you ask him, right, in a press conference, he's going to say he deserved that contract. That's why we paid him, because he's in the organization. but it's hard to really tell if he's this huge fan, and it's hard to tell if he's fine with Trevor Lawrence making the mistakes that he has been making, right? It's really difficult to see them paying Trevor Lawrence as much more than we have to pay our first overall pick, so we'll pay him whatever he asks for, which isn't the worst strategy on earth. It just can have an effect on that locker room, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I am also of the opinion. I think the team knows how good Trevor Lawrence is, and I'm of the opinion that Trevor Lawrence is very good. So, and I think you're of the same opinion of just
I
like
mean,
we
no,
know.
I'm not saying the guy should be
Yeah,
gone, right? They definitely had to keep him around. It's just, again, you pay a quarterback that isn't a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, that's going to affect your locker room unless you've been winning. And the fact is, they haven't been
sure.
winning.
I would say that, but that's the QB market
Yeah,
nowadays. That's just how
exactly.
it goes. This
But
is
again,
for,
it's
then
just
you can say
that's
the
the
same for every
conversation
quarterback.
surrounding the
Right,
team.
right.
And
I get
when
what
you're
you're
not winning, all those little moves get questioned, right?
saying. Right.
The year before this, their approach to the offseason of just letting it be, right? Just keeping their guys around and not really going out signing many free agents and not really drafting many impact rookies, that didn't work out. Now they went out, they were far more aggressive. They brought in a Gabriel Davis. They signed their guys to long-term contracts. So now something very clearly changed in the organization, is my point.
Now let's move on to this offense. And Press Taylor's the offensive coordinator. I fully expect Doug Peterson to have most of the play calling responsibilities, so we won't get too far into that. But let's move to the quarterback. Trevor Lawrence. Polarizing player. Was first overall pick, was put in the conversations with guys like Peyton Manning and as some of the greatest quarterback prospects we've ever seen. And while maybe that was a bit of a stretch, Trevor Lawrence has been a really good quarterback in this league. Despite what the stats say, despite what the box scores say, what he's been able to do with the teams that have been around him, some really, really good things. And I'm totally comfortable giving Trevor that contract.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have totally done it. And I mean, there's not a lot to say about Trevor Lawrence. I think he's a really good quarterback.
There is a lot to say about Trevor Lawrence because, to me, at least, as someone that, again, I don't think the guy's bad, but the fact is, the expectation was Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, one of those elite of the elite quarterbacks, like Hall of Fame caliber guy. That's what everyone was expecting. And this, again, is why I think he starts a little bit of a conversation in that locker room, because he hasn't been that. That's the reality. He hasn't. Is he a ridiculously talented passer? Yes, absolutely. But let's be honest, they have lost some games because of him.
You could say that about everybody, though. I mean, he led the league in drop touchdown passes last year.
Yeah, and that's
You know what I
absolutely
mean?
true. Again, good player. Like, I'm not
And
saying the
was
guy's
having
bad.
a fantastic season
he hasn't-
before he got hurt last year.
He was throwing some picks and he was making some plays that made you say, I don't. So here's my thing with Trevor Lawrence. It feels like now he's at this point. We talked about Doug Peterson. Maybe it's a Doug Peterson thing, but it's very similar to Carson Wentz, right? Sometimes, and I'm saying the good Carson Wentz, by the way, when he was a good quarterback. But even when Carson Wentz was in like his MVP form, he would get the ball sometimes, and you would just say, this could easily be some boneheaded pick, but this could also be some miraculous play. It's the Josh Allen type of situation. But I think Josh Allen, the good is high. The highs are higher, I would say, with Josh Allen. I would say that Trevor Lawrence is like a diet Josh Allen. Not because he plays similarly, but I think he has the same effect on your team in the sense he could lose you the game on any given play, but he could also win you the game on any given play. And it's more good than bad, obviously. That's why he's a good quarterback. That's why he got paid what he did. But the fact is, there still is that aspect of chaos, what the hell's going to happen here type of thing.
Totally. No, I agree with that. I can absolutely agree with that.
It's just too often he is... I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's too often... I just felt like I needed to say this before we move on. He has what he needs, right? He has the open receiver, or a receiver is going to make his break and get open. But he chooses to kind of roll out or take these hero ball plays that, what's the point of taking that risk when you have the receiver just about to get open?
Hmm.
And
Right.
it's too often. It's too often for a quarterback that's getting paid as much as he is, with expectations as high as he is. Again, he is losing them games.
Again, I would also argue the team around him hasn't been that good on
You're right,
offense
and you're
at all.
completely right, and you are
And he
completely
elevates
right.
this offense. He
He
does
elevates
elevate
it
this
at times, but there are times where he actively hurts it, and that's what I'm saying. Like it's a
I
give and a
I
take.
think I
They're
think it's a
getting more
way
than
more give than it is take.
I agree.
That's what
I,
I
I
think.
agree. That's why he's still a good quarterback and paid what he is.
Mhm.
But we would be completely mistaken to act like Trevor Lawrence is some saint that can't do any wrong.
Mhm.
That's all.
Totally.
Because he is
Totally.
not in that Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes type of tier. Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud. Like, he is not in that tier of quarterback. That's
Right.
the reality here. That's what it is. And again, he's still really good, but part of the reason the season was a disappointment was because Trevor Lawrence himself was a disappointment.
But yeah, that's after like Trevor Lawrence before the injury, tape was phenomenal. Like Trevor Lawrence before he got hurt with that high ankle sprain was really good.
Yeah,
Like he was putting together a great season, and then the
but
injury happens.
but there was still the occasional "what's going
I
on here" type of stuff. But
sure,
that's
but
an
that was
aspect of his game.
yeah, sure.
That is
But
his
I
game. Again,
yeah.
it's not necessarily the worst thing on earth. It's
Mhm.
just we have to mention that is his game.
Totally, totally. But there is also a backup here who actually was in the same draft class as Trevor
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence, Mac Jones. And as it goes for back quarterbacks, it's about as good as it gets, probably. Like he's a good backup quarterback. I don't think he's a starter at this point of his career,
Mm-hmm.
but he's shown good things before. He's very much traditional pocket
Yeah.
passer, gonna get the ball out quick.
I just
He's a good
love to
backup
see
to
him
have.
embracing that role.
Yes,
It's a lot
I think he's
better.
gonna be great. He's
Yeah,
gonna be having fun in Jacksonville in
yeah.
that role.
He's gonna become a lot of people's favorite player
Yeah,
for sure.
he's awesome. He's a
Mm-hmm.
cool dude, and I'm happy I'm happy he's happy because being drafted to replace the greatest quarterback of all time in a championship city, it's rough on you when it doesn't perform that way. When a lot of it maybe wasn't quite your fault. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So, but now we'll get to the actual players surrounding the quarterback, and we'll start with the running back and Travis Etienne. And I entering last season, I wasn't like super high on Etienne, but I was thoroughly surprised. I thought Etienne put together a good season as a starting running back for this team. Uh, really just explosive player, a
Mm-hmm.
guy you want to get a screen, get him out in space, good zone runner. I don't know how much of the vision I love,
Mm-hmm.
but
Well,
when it comes to being
I will say this: there's a lot of inside zone. They run probably too much inside zone, and there's a lot of the time where you think it's outside zone just because he looks for like a
it
little
looks like the
bit.
home run. It
No,
looks like the home run.
he looks a little bit in the inside, like at the intended gaps, and then he's just like, nah. If there's a wide open lane, he'll take it. But
Yeah,
if it's a little bit of maneuvering he has to do, he'll just run straight outside. Like
yeah,
it's what he does, and he's a better outside zone runner. I think they don't utilize him correctly because they don't run enough outside zone. That's also
right.
because they run so much shotgun because that's Doug Peterson's offense. I do like a lot of the stuff they do with the. Some people would consider it a pass play. I don't. I just consider it toss out of shotgun, where they run outside zone towards the side that the running back's on. So let's say the running back is on the left of the quarterback. They are going to have Travis Etienne go left, almost like a bubble, and then Trevor Lawrence is just going to throw him the ball, and the linemen are just going to block outside zone that way.
Right.
Very simple. A lot of people consider it a pass. To me, that's a run play, and I like that. I like that they do that because it allows blocks to develop. I think it's a good variation, especially because out of shotgun, it's difficult to run outside zone. The running back has to take a weird angle. So it's a lot better to run it in that way. I do like that change a lot, and I think it maximizes ETN's skill set. They just don't run it enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you're talking about running a lot of inside zone. I was a fan of Tank Bigsby coming out of college. I
Mm-hmm.
really loved his vision, how downhill of a runner he was, and didn't quite have the rookie season. There's actually it's funny. I think it's every Tanks Bigsby target that happened last season, and all of them go awfully. There's like 3 picks. There's like 4 drop, like 2 drops or whatever. It's like he's not a receiving back. That we'll make that clear.
Yeah,
But if we're talking about inside
that's not
zone,
his role.
this is the guy that like small hole, he's gonna find it and he's gonna
Mm-hmm.
go forward. He's got good vision, and I like him. I still think he's good.
Yeah, that's his role, right? We talk
Mhm.
about it a lot. you want to be versatile in terms of your running back skill sets. Bigsby and ETN complement each other really well. It's just using them the right way. They got to do it.
Right. Yeah, and then there's Dearness Johnson, who we know from his Cleveland days, just a good backup running back to have. He's solid.
Vision. The vision's really good.
Yep. But that's about it when it comes to these running backs. Anything you want to add here, or you want to move to the receivers now?
No, I think, of course, ETN is a great receiving back. I think we got to mention that. He is a great receiver out of the backfield. He contributes a lot in that way. But yeah, for sure, let's move over to those receivers.
And we'll start with the one. And the one is Christian Kirk out of the slot.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, just a really great slot receiver. Good route runner, good hands, quick, fast.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you want out of it. And it sucked when he went down with injury for parts of last season. And because he is Trevor's number one guy.
Yeah.
And getting him back in this rotation, getting him back in the group with a healthy Trevor Lawrence is going to help out a lot. He's going to get if you're looking at this from a fantasy perspective, PPR, he's getting the receptions. He's getting a ton of receptions a game. It's not going to be the outside receivers. It's going to be guys like him.
But he doesn't, to me, would you consider him like an ideal one?
No, but I'm saying he's the one in this offense.
Yeah.
He's definitely the one in this offense.
I just want to make that very clear. Like, he does what he does well, but it's not to the level of which you want your main option.
It's not like when you're talking, he's a one from the slot. He's not like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's
Correct.
a one from the slot. This is the number one receiver on this team who happens to play in the slot.
Mm-hmm.
But then we'll go to the guy that they're hoping can become the one, the rookie they drafted, Brian Thomas Jr., who does – I describe him as he does one thing and one thing really well, and that is he goes deep and he's going to catch a deep ball, and he can go over players, and he's fast. And I think he's a fine route runner. It's not the biggest part of his game.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked the pick. I thought it was a good fit with a guy like Christian Kirk. And the fact that they got to trade back first before getting the guy that they had their eyes set on, and he was the fifth receiver off the board, I thought it was good value. Would we have gone at Adonai Mitchell? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you got a weapon for Trevor. And I liked Brian Thomas enough. He was my fifth-ranked receiver.
Listen, I don't want to be overly negative. I'm not a big BTJ guy, but I will admit the skill set, you do like to have someone like that in your room, of course.
Yes, and it complements what Christian Kirk brings for sure. But it kind of makes Gabe Davis's role irrelevant.
And
that's kind of the same.
And it makes you question, why the hell did you give him that contract?
Exactly.
That's
I'm
3
completely
years, $7 million a year. Why?
I want to say one thing real quick before we move on. Trent Baalke, I don't think is a very good drafter of players, right? I thought he did a really good job on day one with Brian Thomas because it was clear that was the guy they wanted. They got to trade back, get some value, still got the guy they wanted. I thought it was fine. Everything after that, I question in this draft, which we'll get to. But every other player after that, I question personally. But I just wanted to mention that. Back to the Gabe Davis thing. I don't know why they gave him that contract. He is what you want Brian Thomas Jr. to be.
Yeah.
And that's deep
so
threat,
again,
next receiver.
Why the hell are you giving away a contract? The idea is, right, if you know you're going to draft a wide receiver, you wouldn't sign a wide receiver with the same exact skill set.
Yeah. And
but then the problem was they were banking on bringing back Calvin Ridley.
Mm-hmm.
They were expecting to bring him back, and they knew if they brought him back, they weren't going to sign BTJ. Like, that was their idea. It was supposed to be Calvin Ridley as the one. They couldn't do it. And listen, this is the type of stuff that goes back to that culture, right? Yeah. You're someone in the locker room, and you see them making these mistakes, and then you hear the conversation that people are having on social media about their mistakes. Listen, we're not the only ones that are noticing this. These are very... what's the words I'm looking for? These are very face value mistakes.
Right.
That a lot of people are picking up on. I imagine players are picking up on the same thing. And I imagine players are losing faith in the Jaguars organization as a result of these blunders from a team building perspective. That's the reality here. All right? I have not seen a team invest so much in a receiver core, whether that's money, draft capital, into a receiver core, just for me to really not feel good about it. Really not feel good about it. Now, again, I'm not a BTJ guy, so maybe that's part of it. And Christian Kirk is a receiver that I look at and I say, yeah, he has a role, but that's their best guy. That's a problem. Gabe Davis, I'm not a Gabe Davis guy either. Even by that entire big play threat standard, I don't think he's overly great at it. I think he plays that role. But again, I just see 3 role players in their receiving core. I'm going to be honest. Now, BTJ has the potential, but I just not.
I see
not
a high. I think higher of BTJ than I think you do, but still, I agree. Like this is somewhere where Trevor Lawrence needs to elevate this receiver.
Yeah,
like,
and listen, that's why you pay him.
Yeah,
that's why you pay him. I like Parker Washington off the bench. You know, that's a good player right there. Another guy.
I like Devin Duvernay in depth. I like Devin Duvernay
as depth, of course.
Yeah,
of course. You know, their depth isn't bad. Tim Jones even I like, but it's just you have 3 wide receivers that you have to start, and I don't see a single one that I love really as a role player. I just see 3 role players, and I guess they like Christian Kirk does complement BTJ and Gabe Davis. Okay, sure. But you just don't have anyone that I like much. Like, I know some teams that I would take their wide receivers 4, 5, and 6 as a better wide receiver trio than this wide receiver trio. And you invested so much.
Can you name one real quick?
Oh, can I name one real quick? Damn, you called my bluff. I definitely could. I mean, I would have to really think
I'm sure
about
that's out there. We'd have to think about it. But no, I agree. This is a kind of unimpressive wide receiver core for sure.
Yeah. I mean, now you're going to get me thinking. I'm going to randomly say a team at some point.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll take it. But let's move off the receivers now, and we'll move to the tight ends.
The Texans. There you go.
They're 3, 4, and 5? No,
I would take
4, 5, and 6.
No, so that would be Noah Brown, right? Noah Brown, I would take.
John
Mechie. And then little-known legend, shouldn't have been a 7th-round pick, Xavier Hutchinson, as the 6th.
I'd still... It's close.
Xavier Hutchinson's a dog. Are you on the Xavier Hutchinson train?
He was my 8th ranked receiver in that draft.
Real ones had him in the top 5. Let's be honest here. Xavier Hutchinson was a dog. I don't care what's being said. I'll take that.
I'll say this. I'd take the Jags, but the fact that it's close is ridiculous.
Exactly. And again, this isn't just they're a rebuilding team. They invested in this group. That's the problem. One of these guys was a 1st-round pick this year, right? And you like BTJ. That's also part of the difference. But Christian Kirk is getting paid a lot. Gabe Davis is getting paid a lot for a 3rd option. This is ridiculous.
That Kirk contract was part of the whole, they were really bad and they needed to pay a tax on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. But now they're supposedly good.
But let's move from the receivers now to the tight ends. Now, I love saying this to people, and I'm always like, if I told you Evan Ingram was 4th in receptions last year, would you believe me? That's
well, as
crazy.
Someone that was watching, I know.
I know,
he
but
broke the reception record for tight ends, right?
Yep, something like that. But being 4th in the league in receptions, he was a good receiving tight end.
He's their best receiving option. That's the reality here. Yeah, he's their best receiving option,
and he's good.
No, he is. He's a nice jumbo slot. And he's a good enough blocker for Peterson to use him in unique ways, right? Because they do line him up in line a little bit. And I think the key reason that he's as productive as he is isn't just the talent. Peterson's utilization of him is really nice. They'll have certain RPOs, because Peterson loves his RPOs, where they'll have, maybe it'll be outside zone, inside zone, whatever, right? And they'll have Evan Ingram intentionally whiff on a linebacker and then just settle. While the linebackers are scraping over, he'll just settle. And if it's open, Trevor Lawrence, he just pulls it, passes, and you got an 8-yard gain. Cool. And if they cover it, then they hand the ball off. Simple as that, right? That's how this offense works. And it's convincing because when Evan Ingram blocks, sometimes he does actually just straight up whiff. And it's not just him running around. And Doug Peterson takes advantage of that. They almost like that he's whiffing on blocks. And they do that a pretty decent amount. Right? Their utilization of the guy, whether they sneak him under formations, if you're playing soft zone, he'll settle in the weak spot, do a good job there. He'll run a drag route and get a throw underneath, right? They do a lot of good stuff just to get him the ball. He's a productive guy, reliable target. I remember on the Giants, he used to drop the ball a lot. Now he's somehow consistently catching.
Yeah, the redemption story is nice.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely is. He's a good player, just a good receiving tight end that's utilized really well.
And then there's Luke Farrell, who's much more of your traditional inline wide tight end, going to be a blocker. I was quoted on saying Brenton Strange was one of the worst picks of the draft last year, where he was drafted
So
in the second round, and
I'm still.
Was
that more of a gripe with the player or the pick?
The pick. I thought the pick was like, why would you?
Because I like Brenton Strange.
He was fun. He wasn't he definitely wasn't the top tight end on my board.
Well, yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah,
I completely agree. But
it was more just like the value of Strange plus why did you pick him?
Yeah, I don't think he would go. I don't think he's a second rounder. But you take him day 3 or even late day 2, maybe late round 3, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, because the fact is he's a good blocker. And he does the traditional tight end stuff, right? Settle in the weak spot of zones, catch the ball reliably. He's not an overly great separator, but it's okay. He catches through contact pretty well. Brennan Strange is just a traditional tight end to play that role. And he does all that stuff. Did they have to draft him in round 2?
In round 2? No, they
didn't. Especially when Luke Farrell is very similar, and he plays that role
Luke
fine.
Farrell's better right now.
Maybe.
It's not like we're talking like...
Yeah, this is the Mo Alley Cox versus Austin Hooper discussion.
This is exactly what that is.
Yeah.
This is exactly what that is.
Yeah.
But, the pick didn't make much sense to me, but it's a nice tight end room to have. It's not... It could be weaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Again, it helps when you have one of the best tight ends in the league, I would say, in Evan Ingram. Yeah. Now, of course, is he in Kelsey's tier? Hell no. But he is in, that next tier, right?
Mm-hmm. But now let's move to the offensive line.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting group. This is definitely an interesting group of players. And we'll start with Cam Robinson, their left tackle, who I like him as a pass blocker. I don't think he's a very good run blocker. But when you're in this offense, pass blocking is kind of more important to this offense than run blocking would be. So it's fine. He's a good starter. He's not going to blow the socks off of people. But you're not going into the season like this is a weakness or super worried about it. The Cam Robinson has his moments, his games, but most of the time he's just a solid starter that you have on the offense.
Yeah, I'll say, if you're ranking all 32 starting left tackles, I would say he's probably exactly number 16.
Yeah.
He is fine. That's all. That's what he's there doing. At left tackle, you'll take that.
And you'll take it, because you'll absolutely take that left tackle.
Mm-hmm. And then it is worth mentioning on the bench they have Walker Little, who they invested an early pick in. We just haven't seen him ever. But yeah,
we saw him a little bit last year. We saw him a little bit last. He was fine.
Again, he wasn't. Yeah, he definitely wasn't bad. He never really stood out at all, whether for good or for worse. He's just been there.
Right.
Which I guess when you invest a second rounder into him, and it's been 3 years, that's probably not a good thing. But still, the biggest difference between this year and last year, though, is the interior offensive line. They have a lot of veterans there now.
Ton of veterans.
Left guard Ezra Cleveland, that was a new addition. Fine, he's been in the league for a while. He's been a starter for a while. There's a reason why.
And he's a starting left guard.
Yeah, he's a starting left guard.
If I were to rank the guards in the league, he's probably dead in the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And then Mitch Morse, this is someone who, another veteran, very smart player, more than anything.
Very smart player.
That Bills team, they had some struggles every now and then on the line of scrimmage, but it wasn't because guys were fooled by blitzes. It never was. And Mitch Morse gets a lot of credit for that inside that locker room. According to the coaches, he's a key reason why. And it's clear, he understands what he's looking at consistently. He doesn't get fooled often. And in a league where Mike McDonald disciples are taking over the league and they're running these crazy blitz packages, you got to have a Mitch Morse. Okay, you know. So it helps a lot that now they have the ability to consistently pick up these blitzes. Cool.
And then they have their best offensive lineman at right guard with Brandon Sheriff. And still, not the player maybe he once was. Still a good player, man.
Yeah,
Still one of the better guards in the league. Really good pass blocker still. Kind of losing it when it comes to being a run blocker. Yeah. But even so, again, Pass blocking a lot more important in this scheme than run blocking is.
He used to be a really good puller, but we just don't see that.
No.
They don't do it. Anton Harrison had a good rookie year, though. Like,
He did.
I would say he's the guy
He struggled
that
early on. He
Yes.
struggled early on.
But he
that's the case
excites
with
me.
a lot of tackles.
Mhm.
And yes, he excites me as well.
Yeah. I would say maybe Scherf is the best, but Harrison is the most exciting. Right?
If we ended this season with Harrison being the best player on their offensive line, it wouldn't surprise me.
Oh no,
Like,
I would be surprised if he isn't. If I'm being honest.
And I loved him coming out of college.
Mhm.
I had the fact that he fell to them where he did, I was a bit surprised. I thought he was in the teens.
He was a very pro-ready player in my mind,
Very
and he
pro-ready.
proved that. He had a good rookie year. Let's go into the superlatives though.
Right.
Offensive player of the year. Who are you thinking?
My offensive player of the year, I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I think he was. I mean, it's easy. He's
Mhm.
I think he's really good. And to me, he was having a fantastic season before he got hurt. And if he's can stay healthy this season, I think he's putting together a good season.
Does him being my offensive player of the year remove me from the Trevor Lawrence hater allegations or no?
You're good. Yeah, you're removed. You've been cleansed.
There we go. Even though again, it's not like there's another choice. Right.
Yeah, no.
Again, I like watching Trevor Lawrence play. I love the gunslingers. My favorite quarterback ever was Matthew Stafford. Still is Matthew Stafford. But I can acknowledge that I like watching a player play, and he isn't quite as good as a lot of people might think he is. I think he's a good player. Again, I don't think he's bad. I'm not saying he shouldn't have got that contract. I just don't. I think he contributes in their losses way more than people acknowledge. Right.
Totally.
But offensive rookie of the year, there's really one pick. Come on.
Yeah, it's Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah.
I mean,
Even
it's
again, this time I'll acknowledge I'm a Brian Thomas Jr. hater, but I'll still say he's my offensive rookie of the year.
But so let's now go. Wait, first, do you have your X factor?
I have my
or,
X factor, not my
okay.
12th man. Do you have either?
I have my 12th man here.
Who's your 12th man?
Think Bigsby.
Take
I think
Bigsby.
Bigsby.
I
think
see. I
Bigsby.
like that. I do really like that.
Yeah, he's going to be. I think again, bringing that change of pace back in for ETN. They love inside zone. They're going to use. He's great when it comes to inside zone. He was great in college. He's great at reading those holes. Again, I think ETN's the top back, but I think there's a world where Tanks Bigsby just gets a lot of production because he's coming in as a complement, and that looks really good behind this offensive line.
Yeah, I put my X factor as Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
so-
No, I mean, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, if he can play like he was supposed to, be this elite of the elite quarterback, be in that Mahomes tier. If he could be like Josh Allen, where, he still makes the mistakes, but he's doing so much good, it's like, come on, give him his flowers. They're fine.
Mhm.
But he needs to be that good. And at the moment, I think he is really good. I think he's a really good quarterback. I wouldn't put him quite there
Right.
for me.
But now let's move to this defense with a brand new defensive coordinator in Ryan Nielsen, who was the defensive coordinator for the Falcons last year, who surprisingly had a pretty damn good defense for a large part of the season. So Jags are hoping they can bring that style coming over here. What can you tell me about the style that Nielsen provides?
They're shifting from Caldwell's 3-4 to a 4-down front with two backers. It's gonna be a lot of two high shells with some single high stuff sprinkled in. I was reading something, I think it's on the Jaguars website, where they kind of just asked Doug Peterson a couple questions about how the defense is going to be ran, and this is pretty much what he said, right? It's going to be a lot of man coverage and some cover six, but for the most part, the thing he really emphasized is how it's going to be 4 down with two backers, right? That seems to be the feel. Again, Nielsen, he has a history of running quarters to the side of the best receiver, and then the deep half would be
cover six.
Exactly. Cover six. But he will pretty much
But he always does it to the strong side.
Exactly.
For quarter, yeah.
Or the more intimidating pass catcher is what he'll do. He cares less about like passing strength unless it's like 3-by-1, right? And the one is a tight end. It's that obvious. He cares less about passing strength and more about personnel. He's more about that. And that's very different from Caldwell. Okay, especially, this is a really different defense. Really different defense. But Nielsen, like you said, did a good job in the past. Now let's see if he does it with Jacksonville. I do think this is something that's a little bit more demanding of the players in the secondary. And I don't love their secondary, but again, we'll get into that. Maybe he
Yeah.
can make up for that with the players on the defensive front.
And we'll get to those players on the defensive front right now, and we'll talk about their best defensive player in Josh Allen, who really, really broke out last season as one of the best edge rushers in football and deservedly got a contract worthy of that.
Mm-hmm.
He is fantastic. I loved him when he was coming out of college, and he's always been good. Josh Allen has always been a good player. Last year, he took that step into superstardom in my eyes. Fantastic pass rusher, fantastic run defender, every facet of his game. He is an elite edge rusher in my book. What do you have to say about Josh Allen?
Well, I mean, you said it right. He's become a good player. Now one of the best edges, one of the best players at one of the most important positions in the entire sport.
Uh-huh.
He is so damn good at getting to the quarterback now. He had such a glow up. And it's everything from a technical perspective to, I think he's just physically more dominant than he used to be. But it also helps that the edge complementary to him, Trevon Walker, has really started to show us something too.
Yes.
Both of these edges had a glow up in the same season.
I really want to say this because I've made a couple videos on my TikTok. I've talked about Trevon Walker a bit. There's a large consensus that he's like this bust because he was the first overall pick and he hasn't been. And yes, he hasn't quite lived up to the pick yet. I think that's going to change real soon here because he got a lot better last season. He was really good as a player last year. And if that trajectory keeps going, this could be one of the best edge duos in the league. Absolutely could be. He has turned into just his get off for one. Phenomenal. He's got a sick get off. I don't love the moves, but he is such a physically dominating and overpowering player that a lot of times it doesn't matter. And as we knew coming into the league, he was a high-level run defender when he entered the league. He's an even higher level run defender now. It's only going to get better. Trayvon Walker's a good player. I want to get that out of the way right now. A lot of people don't realize it because they look at Aiden Hutchinson, who admittedly, fantastic player. They look at Aiden Hutchinson's production compared to his, and it's like, he's a bust. No, Trayvon Walker is only getting better, and he's a really good player.
Mm-hmm. That's the equivalent of calling Derek Stingley a bust because Sauce is better, right? That's just not fair. The reality is the best player in the draft isn't always going to get drafted first. But sometimes these guys are supposed to be safer. Now, that wasn't the case with Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker was supposed to be the project with the higher ceiling, and Hutchinson would be the guy who performs better from day one. But over time, Walker becomes the better player, and maybe that'll happen.
It can still, but Hutchinson is still phenomenal.
But I just want to say, maybe we just live in a world where both of them are tremendous players. Right?
Yes.
Maybe that's the case. Maybe it doesn't have to be one is an awful bust of a player and the other one is a Hall of Famer, the next Lawrence Taylor. Like, no, maybe they're both just really good.
Like, at least they didn't take Thibodeau, okay?
Yeah, exactly, right? So, yeah, I look at it. I like it. And the interior defensive line, I also am a big fan of, right? Mm-hmm. You got Eric Armstead. That was a nice addition for them.
He was still a very good player. Like, he was a good player for him last year.
Yeah.
Well, for the
49ers. Even though he's an older guy, he's someone that could even line up on the edge if you want. He could do a lot. He's a good run defender. He's smart.
Has a lot of positional versatility.
Exactly. Then Roy Robertson Harris, I feel like he's quietly been like a dog. Robertson Harris. He's really he gets around defenders in some really unique ways, and he's never quite out of a play. He does kind of the Byron Murphy thing, where he falls on the ground and then he like crawls over and still makes the tackle. Like, you'll see that at times. He's someone who, you love that, right? Yep. Like, okay, yeah, you got knocked down, but still making the tackle, I don't care, right? So he does some stuff that I really like. Very technically sound player, and then you got some depth behind down the
Devon Hamilton.
Devon Hamilton, very good player in my mind. Yep. He's another guy technically sound, big guy, can eat up some blocks, and then Mason Smith will be a nice third down pass rusher. He'll develop to be something more.
Yeah, it's that's the thing with Mason Smith here is, for one, I do want to mention I'm pretty sure he was taken above Chris Jenkins, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
Which is really crazy to me, actually. I had a much higher grade than Chris Jenkins. But Mason Smith is one of those developmental pieces that's like kind of, he has that, I'm not saying he's going to be Chris Jones. He has that Chris Jones build. He's a big, strong defensive tackle that's really athletic. He just needs to be able to put it together. And if he can, Jaguars have hit on a really good player. I just can't go over the fact that they took him above Chris Jenkins. I think that's kind of crazy.
But I do just have, you're not going to see a bigger Chris Jenkins lover than me. Okay.
I know. I know.
But I didn't know if I told you what I thought of him, but I guess I must have. For those of you unaware, and I'll say this because I will not back down, as someone that likes the Grover Stewarts and the Vita Veas of the world, I was very willing to put Chris Jenkins as my top interior defensive lineman in this class because I like the big gap eaters, right? And because of that, you would think that I'm willing to say, oh yeah, they took Mason Smith over Chris Jenkins, crucified Shad Khan and this entire Jaguars organization. And while I don't like the pick, really, because I love Chris Jenkins, very stylistically different player, Mason Smith.
Yeah, super stylistically different.
And I think that's why.
But I always think of this as like, this is a team that isn't rebuilding, as we keep saying. Mason Smith is a rebuilding piece. Like, this is a guy I think is going to take him.
Or is it just an investment that could eventually get them over the edge?
It could. But
or even this. Maybe they think with Devon Hamilton, Eric Armstead, and Roy Robertson Harris, they already have 3 good run defenders. Now they want that superb pass rusher. And Chris Jenkins I like as a pass rusher. But Mason Smith has this ridiculous ceiling as a pass rusher.
But behind Mason Smith now, you have Adam Gotsis, who, good depth to have. And then they drafted rookie Jordan Jefferson, who he's more of your run defender type of defensive tackle. I don't expect him to have some big impact on this team or anything, but he's there.
Yeah.
But that's about it for when it comes to interior defensive line depth. When it comes to like depth along the edge is where you get a little more. You don't love it. There's Trevis Gibson. He's okay. Like you're not excited about any of this depth. No one here is like, you're like, oh, it's a part of a rotation.
You tell me Yasir Abdullah doesn't make you excited?
He doesn't. I hate to say it.
Again, the way I see it, if one of those edge rushers goes down, they're just moving Eric Armstead to defensive end and then putting Devon Hamilton in for Armstead. Right. That's what I see happening. But it will be a defensive line that rotates their interior a lot. That's what I'm expecting. Let's talk about those linebackers, though, because that's a duo I like. I like it, too. Voisaid Oluokun. Again, a name that I feel is always still underrated, but he's a good linebacker. He's a damn good linebacker, man. And he's coming over from Atlanta. What's it called? Yeah. Well, not coming over from Atlanta, but he was there last year. But, like, in Atlanta, I mean, didn't he lead the league in tackles? Didn't he lead the league in tackles? Well, he does it, like, every year. I was just about to say, like, Oluokun is always near the top of the list in terms of tackles. Very often the leader. Oluokun, as someone that has played in Atlanta, he has some familiarity with the type of defense that Nielsen has run, so that's a good thing. Now, it should be interesting. I don't know how much of an overlap there was between Nielsen and Oluokun. There wasn't much of one, if I remember correctly.
There isn't. I more brought up Atlanta to mention he led the league in tackles that year. And
is there not an overlap at all? Oh, yeah, there isn't, because he was with the Saints. No. There might have been a 1 year.
Might have been. But
I'll look into that. But, yeah, no, Oluokun has been a really good player for a while now.
And you're very happy with him being at that starting linebacker spot. And then you got Devin Lloyd, who has really started to come into his own as of late.
It was Dean Pease.
Yes. Had kind of a rough rookie season for Devin Lloyd. Kind of showed maybe he wasn't the most athletic linebacker in the world, but he's kind of become more accustomed to NFL speed now. He's a smarter player, and you see it in his play. He's a damn good linebacker, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. Lloyd,
especially as a run defender.
His rookie year, he started off really well, Lloyd. And then he kind of fell off, but then he bounced back again, right? Devin Lloyd is a player that kind of a freak of nature athlete. I'm a fan of him. Ability to go sideline to sideline. Play rec isn't quite what you would hope, but
that's something that, like, I think he's the kind of he's kind of come into himself as kind of one of those freak of natures. But in college, I didn't see a freak of nature, and I think that's what people picked on when he was in his rookie season. But I think he's gotten faster. I think he's gotten bigger.
I think you're right. Maybe freak of nature isn't the right word, but I'm thinking instinctive.
Yes.
You'll see someone that, the second a ball is caught, he's the first guy bolting over there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's the main thing that shows off. So I probably used the wrong words there.
All good. But yes, he's really come into his own, especially as a run defender. He is a fantastic run defender, one of the best run defending linebackers in the league. He's still good in coverage, too. It's a really good linebacker duo here.
And then Chad Muma is nice depth.
He's nice depth. Again, one of those picks where I was like, did he need to be picked that high after you drafted Devin Lloyd in the same draft? Maybe not, but he's good depth to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Besides him, though, there really aren't any other names I'm looking at. I'm like, yeah.
Not really.
But the secondary is that's where I get concerned here.
There's a bit of concern here for the secondary. I'd like to start with the safeties, the safety group, because I do think it's pretty. I think it's the best part of the secondary for sure. I liked Andre Sisco coming out of college a lot, and he's kind of taken some time, but I think he's developing into a pretty nice safety to have. I like Andre Sisco and what he's able to do. Antonio Johnson, as a rookie, was able to put together a good season for this Jags team last year, and I expect him to play that box safety role as he's been doing.
He's been that way ever since college. I mean, he's someone that really shined as like one of those hard-hitting like box safeties. I think he was really the best box safety in that class, unless I'm forgetting someone.
Well, that was a really weak safety class.
Oh yeah.
That was a ridiculously weak safety class. Yeah.
But still, he shouldn't have fell to round 5.
No. He was the top. He was probably the top safety on my board last year. I think. I have to go look. He was like top 3, I think. But now we talk about Darnell Savage as well, who I'm going to put in the safety group because that's what he technically is.
Okay.
But I think he is this team's starting nickelback for sure. And I think that's his best role because he as a safety was not good with the Packers. He was part of the reason why that team was the worst safety group in the league.
Yeah.
But Darnell Savage as a nickelback, I think fits his skill set a lot more. He just didn't get the opportunity to do so in Green Bay because the defensive coordinator, who shall not be named, would happen to be there. And I think this is going to be a much better fit for him, and I'm excited to see him in this role.
Yeah, I think the big difference is Savage, as an instinctive guy, as a reactionary guy, might benefit a little bit more in kind of an off-man type of situation that they might have going on at nickel here. But, again, I just look back at the scheme. I mean, maybe it could work. I'm willing to kind of throw Savage I am at this point. But
totally.
Again,
and if you do that,
he wasn't working at safety. He wasn't working at safety.
Yeah.
You had to make a change. Nickel could be the change that makes the difference. I just don't quite know. I don't feel very.
If you don't do it, and if he isn't doing well, I think they drafted a good rookie in the 3rd round, and Jerry and Jones that can play nickel at a high level. I think he could be a really good nickel cornerback in this league, and strictly nickel. He's not somebody that can play outside, which there's a lot of concern about who's going to play outside for this team. But even there's just depth here. I mean, Andrew Wingard's a good depth safety. Terrell Edmonds is a good depth safety. It's a lot of good depth in the safety room that you wish was in the outside corner room. But now let's move to that. And we'll move to the better of the two, for sure. Tyson Campbell, who, I mean, the season prior was really good.
Yeah,
and
then
2022 Tyson Campbell was fantastic. And then he fell off, exactly.
Which happens with corners. That happens really often. But does he bounce back? I don't know. We'll see. I mean...
I would hope so, and I'm kind of banking on that, and I kind of believe that is going to happen because very similar in play style to an A.J. Terrell. In the sense of considering Nielsen worked with Terrell, I'm hoping that he can kind of bring Campbell back on that course because he was a really good corner in 2022.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. He should be able to bounce back. At least we're hoping, and if not, I mean, it's not like you have anyone else that is going to take reps away from him. Right now, your next corner is Ronald Darby. You're not in a great spot. Darby was a nice rotational piece last year. Uh, he's going to be a full-time corner here. Not good. I don't really like that. This is going to be a scheme that demands a decent amount from the corners. I just don't trust it.
This is one of those teams, considering how much they've spent in free agency and how much they're kind of banking on free agents. This is one of those teams I could totally see getting one of the remaining cornerbacks that are in the free agency right now, which you hope they do, because after that it's Monteric Brown, who I have no comment on Monteric Brown, I fear. DeAndre Prince, who's a rookie. I didn't watch any of him. I have no comment there either. Trey Flowers, I guess, is there.
Again,
right?
This is supposed to be a competitive team.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be a competitive football team. Like, that's what makes this so much worse.
Yeah.
I struggle to look at that overly positively, but it is going to be a too high safety look a lot of the time. So at least when they get burnt, it's not going to be for a touchdown. It'll only be for like 15 yards.
And if Tyson Campbell can get back to form, you feel a lot better.
Yeah.
It's still a big worry
just
on the other side, but you can run you can run certain coverages to help with that. Like,
yeah, of course. Like we said, the quarter half
side, yeah.
cover 6. They're going to run that to help their guys out. They're going to try and prevent mismatches. Let's move over to the superlatives. Right. Defensive player of the year, I imagine we have the same player.
Yeah, it's Josh Allen.
Yeah, without a doubt, 100%. Defensive rookie of the year, I think we might have the same guy.
It's probably Mason Smith.
Okay, so we agree there.
It's tough though, because there's a world where Darnell Savage sucks, and I think Jerry Jones is starting there.
Yeah, I thought that was what you were going to say, honestly.
I you know what? I'm actually going to take. I think I am going to lean Jones, and you can go Smith.
Yeah,
for
okay.
me. I think there's a world. I also think Darnell Savage can be pretty good in the slot, but Jerry and Jones, they might even just throw him outside because they have no one else to do. So, we'll see how that goes. But I'll go Jerry and Jones.
And then you already said your 12th man, correct?
Yep, but my X factor is on this.
Yeah, and my 12th man is on this.
So my X factor is Trayvon Walker. My X factor is, if he takes that other step, which that next step could be elite. That next step could easily be
Then they have the
rush.
best edge rush duo in the sport.
Yeah,
Just
and
that
it's
simple.
not close.
Yeah.
And when you have 2 elite edge rushers, that makes everything on your deep that makes the corners on your team look really good when you have 2 elite edge rushers that get to the quarterback that quick. So
my 12th man was Devon Hamilton. So
nice.
as you can see, I got 3 defensive linemen. Right? There's a reason that. There's a reason they think they could get away with their corners looking like that. It's because they have a lot of faith in that defensive line, their ability to get to the quarterback. So, there you go. Let's talk about the special teams now. Who are you thinking kick returner, punt returner? I do like the guys that our lads has listed.
yes.
With
and
Parker Washington, Devin Duvernay. But is there another name you think?
Not really. Like Devin Duvernay is that was his role in Baltimore.
He got
too.
brought in there to do that.
He is a punt returner, and I fully expect him to return a lot of kicks and punts this year.
Dearness Johnson is another guy I would probably throw out there. He has experience doing so. Maybe if they're willing to, get a little bit, if they're really willing to put starters out there, Travis Etienne is someone you could entertain putting out there. I think that'd be a really good thing to do. But again, some of these teams are going to approach the special teams as a big opportunity. Other ones, not so much. Right? We'll see what goes on there. Now, how about, just guys to go out there on special teams? Maybe.
It's the usual there, like Chad Muma, the backup linebackers. You're going to see a lot of. It's just like. I want to say some of these backup corners, but considering it's such an unknown, I don't know how much they're going to put out there. You know what I mean?
That's fair. That's fair. I think Brennan Strange can contribute as a blocker. Maybe Fackrell.
I think Tank Bigsby is big enough to be a blocker as well if they want to do that.
That's fair. Terrell Edmonds is someone I want to entertain as someone on
that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I think he could definitely contribute. Now
and Trey Flowers always contributes on special teams.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So he's gonna be there.
As for their guys that are really there to be special teamers, of course Cam Little, they drafted him in the 6th round to be a kicker. He's out of Arkansas. We'll see. He was someone that had a really, really big leg in Arkansas. We'll see how that looks in the NFL. Logan Cook was kind of just a fine punter, like
Yep.
mid. And then someone I want to mention is Daniel Thomas, who is a safety, but he's really just there because of his special teams prowess. He's been a spectacular gunner his entire career. He's someone who had a blocked punt for a touchdown, I want to say, a year or two ago. So that, of course, is a good thing. But what he does is mainly as a gunner, right? Last year, he racked up a bunch of tackles. He forced a lot of fair catches throughout the year. Very good player. That it's really good that they re-signed him. He is coming off injury, though. So hopefully he returns and becomes that same guy again. If not, we might see some of those corners that you mentioned play the gunner spot.
Right.
But yeah, no, let's move over to the predictions.
Let's do it.
For ceiling, we agreed 13-4. Another team. So there's a lot of teams around here where it's
We've mentioned it in prior videos. Yeah. This is the range of like big swings. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're a team that had so much good, right? And then so much bad. Right? They started off the season so strong, but they also averaged nearly 2 turnovers a game. Right? So there's a lot of room for improvement. And the thing is, it's not like you could just clean up those turnovers because that's how they play the game. Right? They play the game risking turnovers. Like, that's what they do. So it's hard to say, oh, yeah, their ceiling is 5 wins and then their floor is 3. Like, no, it's not going to be that close. It's a really wide range. We have the ceiling as 13-4 because they really can be that good. But then the floor is 4-13. Right? Big swing, like we said. That's a 9-win swing. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm going to be honest. This is a team where we really can't get a straight read.
This is one of those teams that, like, we got to see him play first.
Yeah.
Like, we got to see it
for sure.
Plays for,
and then my prediction, I don't know what yours was, but mine was right down the middle. I went game by game. I had them 8-1.
Mine was 9-8. So you threw in a tie there. I gave them a win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
The one game I had as a tie was their Week 1 matchup against Miami in Miami.
Man, I don't know. This is one of those situations where I think this secondary is going to have a really hard time against the Dolphins' offensive weapons, and I probably lean more Dolphins at home. I get it. It's a Florida team, so they're not going to be affected by the Florida weather.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. My thought is because of how I feel like how Miami runs their defense, or how they're probably going to be running it. Now it's no longer going to be a Fangio scheme, but I still expect it to be pretty zone heavy. I think the stuff underneath is really going to work well for the Jaguars. I think that's kind of how they structure their offense, designed to take those big shots, extend the field, and then when you're really overplaying that, that's when they're going to start throwing it to Evan Ingram in the flats and, throwing it to Travis Etienne. Like, that's what they're here to do, make plays after the catch. I think that that's a really good way to go ahead and approach this Miami defense. I also think Week 1 for Miami, how's that defense going to look? We know that these Mike McDonald defenses struggle early. Okay.
Right. And, it could go either way. I think this could be a really high-scoring game, but the Dolphins always seem to win Week 1 too. Like, even like last year we beat the Chargers 34-31. We beat the Patriots the year prior. We beat the Patriots again the week like early on. The first 3 games, Dolphins the best team in the league. After that, it gets suspect. Okay, yeah. I know this from experience.
That's the type of trend I need to understand before we get to Miami. So I look at ties. I am aware they have to happen early. Like, they only happen early, really. And I thought a Week 1 matchup between these two teams, I thought this is a good game to predict it to happen.
Totally could be.
But yeah, let's move on to Cleveland. You definitely make a very fair argument for Miami there. Cleveland, it is in Jacksonville here.
Which is big, because this isn't just like a team that has home field advantage. This is a team that has home field advantage in the Florida weather. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a big deal in the summer.
Yeah,
it's a midday game coming from Cleveland. Like, Jaguars have an advantage here, absolutely do.
Yeah. Where how are you feeling here? Because I think Cleveland's offensive line should be able to hold up against the Jaguars' defensive line, and that'll allow Deshaun Watson to really pick them apart through the air against that
I just
secondary.
don't think I just don't think that hides Deshaun Watson. I don't
That
know.
there you
We'll
go. Well,
see.
that's fair
You
because
know what I
Deshaun
mean?
Watson, there's not really much to like about him at this point. But I also don't like
Yeah.
the secondary. So
Right. So
it's
it's
a
a
weird
really
spot.
who's worse. It's really who's worse, the
Uh-huh.
secondary, or Deshaun Watson, right?
Yeah.
And with
That
this
one could
zone,
go
I
back
don't.
and
And
forth.
that's the thing with Watson right now. He's not at this point in his career. He's not great at picking in the zones. He can't
Mhm.
pick you apart in the zone.
Yeah.
Much more, he wants to throw to the guy that's open. He's not. So I think this. I think this would totally be a win for the Jags.
Jaguars
And
at Buffalo. This one will really come down to which team turns the ball over less.
yeah,
And
totally.
I don't know, right? I have no clue. It depends on which side of the bed both quarterbacks wake up on.
Yeah.
It'll be crazy if that game has no turnovers. It definitely won't happen, but that would be insane. Then at Houston,
We'll give Houston this win.
yeah, I feel
Really
good
just-
about that. I honestly think Houston wins both. I really look at
It
that
could
way.
be the case. It
Yeah.
really depends how good this Jags team is. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
we'll have to see. But Colts at Jaguars.
Mhm.
Again, this is October. The Florida Heat's not as bad. I think really we both think highly of the Colts.
Yeah.
I'm cool splitting with the Colts.
I don't need. If it's not a split, Colts win both.
Yes, I agree.
Again, this is why they fluctuate. Like I don't know, and there's not really. I mean, I guess it's another soft
Is
zone
Anthony
team.
is Anthony Richardson healthy at this
Also
point of the
that.
season? You know what I mean?
And it's soft zone team here. Maybe the Jaguars take advantage of that again. Last year, despite the Colts being a soft zone team, they also allowed a lot of big plays because for some reason the safeties couldn't tackle. Let's see if that happens again. I don't know. Right? We'll see. Then we got the Bears,
This is Bears for me.
and it's in London. Still
Jaguars
taking Caleb.
Jaguars do win in London a lot.
Yeah.
Jaguars do win in London a lot.
Well, they have
I
back-to-back
don't know.
London
Again-
games.
again,
I can
this
see
secondary-
them winning both London games. I can.
Oh yeah, I'm just kind of like, God, we keep bringing up that secondary. Oh, these receivers are gonna torch these guys.
That's
But
fair.
does the offensive line hold up against potentially two elite edge rushers?
Mm-hmm.
Do
Yeah.
they? We'll see.
And we'll see. I am willing to say that they beat the Patriots, though.
Oh yeah, quite easily. I'm pretty. Yeah, I'm set on that.
Mm-hmm.
Packers at Jags. I think the Packers are a better team.
Yeah. I
So
think
I'll
the
go
Packers
Packers.
probably win it.
Yeah.
And Jair Alexander's completely shutting down any of these receivers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jaguars Eagles in Philadelphia. I'll give it to the Eagles.
Philly's a much better team on primetime
Yep.
television. Yeah.
Yep.
But then
Vikings Jaguars.
this one
That's
might
where
fluctuate.
this one could fluctuate. Depends how the quarterbacks are playing, really.
Well, it
That's right.
depends on how Trevor Lawrence can stand up against that blitz package, right?
Mhm.
Like that's what that one's about. So
Yeah.
I look at that and I don't know, right?
Yeah. Jaguars Lions. I'm comfortable taking the
Oh
Lions.
yeah.
here.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Then
Texans Jags. We'll give it to the Texans. That's okay.
yep, coming off a bye week for Jacksonville though. Maybe the Jaguars can.
Oh yeah. This is at home, off of bye week. I don't know. This is one of those games. I think
Peterson's good
Jaguars
off the
will win.
bye.
Yeah, I could totally give the Jaguars this game actually.
Yeah, but then in Tennessee, Jags might win.
Yeah, I mean, again, if Will Levis is playing lights out football,
Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard to do.
right.
But
I feel
Jets,
comfortable
Jets.
taking Jacksonville there, but Jets, that's another team. Will they be healthy at that point? I don't really know. We'll see. That changes a lot of this. Another
Yes.
zone team, right?
yeah,
How will they attack that?
but even so, like that defense, I think could like secondary wise. I mean, these receivers are gonna struggle.
yeah, that's
struggle
fair.
heavily.
That's fair.
Right.
At Las Vegas, I
That's
could
tough.
see that defense giving them some problems,
hmm
right?
I totally can,
I mean,
and I could see those weapons giving the secondary a lot of problems.
yeah, I would take Vegas there probably.
I would take Vegas. Yeah,
And then
I'll take the Jags. I'll take the Jags.
Jags against Tennessee. Yeah, I feel good about that.
And for what could potentially determine a playoff spot
Yeah.
in this
In
last game.
Indianapolis, do we expect Richardson to stay healthy here? Right?
Well, I mean, I'll say this: if he is healthy, I'll take the Colts.
Yeah, I agree there. So that's all for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. The Jaguars are a team that I look at. Again, they could really fluctuate for me. I could see them being awful. I could see them being good. I could see Doug Peterson making it till the end of the season and getting an extension, or I could see him getting fired within the first 5 weeks.
Hmm.
Yep. How about you go ahead and wrap this up? This is going up on your channel. I don't want to do it for you.
Yeah, no, you're good. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this latest installment of the 2024 preseason power rankings. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, share the video. And if you like the series, feel free to subscribe to our channel. If you like what we had to say, we have our own individual stuff that you can find in the description. His Twitter, podcast, his YouTube, my TikTok, my Twitter, etc. And we hope that you guys tune in to the next episode, which will be up on Pat's channel, which is again linked in the description, episode 21. Thank you all for watching.